Look at the border between the United States and Canada right now. This no longer resembles a partnership. What you're watching is an economic wall being erected in real time. For your entire lifetime, Washington assumed Canada would simply fall in line. Whenever the White House wanted something, Ottawa was expected to deliver. This week, that assumption died. Donald Trump attempted to cripple the Canadian economy. He threatened tariffs as high as 100%. He demanded total compliance. He expected surrender by morning. Instead, Mark Carney flipped the table. He didn't apologize. He didn't beg. He simply turned away from the United States and pivoted toward the rest of the world. And now the damage is landing on American soil. Supply chains are fracturing. The Oval Office is scrambling in real time. Trump just triggered a global realignment, and he can't reverse it. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how Canada called the ultimate bluff. I'm going to walk you through the numbers Washington doesn't want you to see, and I'm going to explain why this unprecedented move is hitting your grocery bill, your car payment, and your own financial future. Here's what happened. It started in the middle of the night. Trump did what he always does. He grabbed his phone and lobbed a grenade. No diplomatic back channels, no call to the Prime Minister, just a post, a threat. The demand was brutal. Immediate blanket tariffs on Canadian imports. Everything. Lumber, aluminum, auto parts, oil, electricity. He declared the existing trade agreement a ripoff. He claimed America was getting taken advantage of. He gave Canada 48 hours to send a delegation to Washington and accept a sweeping list of punishing quotas. Refuse, and he'd shut down the northern border. He'd halt billions in daily commerce. He promised to break the Canadian economy by year's end. Trump expected the old playbook to run its course. He attacks. The target panics. The target caves. They fly to Washington. They beg for relief. Trump signs a modified deal, holds a rally, and declares a massive victory for America. He thought he held all the cards, but Mark Carney never read the script. The Canadian Prime Minister didn't send an angry tweet. He didn't go on television to shout. He didn't dispatch a round of apologies to the Oval Office. Carney picked up the phone, but he didn't call Washington. He called Brussels. He called Tokyo. He called Seoul. More than 12 hours later, while the White House was still waiting for Ottawa to surrender, Carney stepped up to a podium. Calm. Completely composed. He announced that Canada was activating a new emergency trade framework, locking in long-term supply agreements across the European Union and the Indo-Pacific. Canada's vast strategic reserves, critical minerals, uranium, heavy oil, agricultural exports, the very resources Trump threatened to tax, were being redirected into guaranteed contracts with American competitors. Carney didn't negotiate around the United States. He simply routed around it. He took the weapon Trump pointed at Canada and quietly unloaded it. You need to understand why this is an absolute earthquake. Let's look at the numbers, because what you're seeing on the nightly news is missing the full picture. The American economy does not function without Canada. That's not an opinion. It's a supply chain reality. Take the auto industry. Every single day, thousands of vehicles cross the Ambassador Bridge between Detroit and Windsor carrying components. A single car door can cross that border up to 6 times before the vehicle is finished. Trump threatened to tax every one of those crossings at 100%. He thought he was hurting Canada. The morning after, Ford and General Motors hit the panic button. GM's CEO stated that tariffs would cost the company between $4 and $5 billion in a single year. CNN. You cannot assemble an American vehicle in Michigan if the aluminum from Quebec and the stamped parts from Ontario stop arriving. Assembly lines are engineered for just-in-time delivery. When the parts stop, the factory stops. Now look at energy. This is the number Washington really doesn't want you to see. Yes, the United States pumps a lot of oil, but American refineries in the Midwest were specifically designed to process heavy crude, and that heavy crude comes from Alberta. America depends on millions of barrels of Canadian oil every day to keep gas prices stable at your local pump. Trump threatened to tariff that oil. Carney didn't argue. He simply pointed to the expanded Trans Mountain pipeline and the tankers lined up off the coast of British Columbia. The message was clear. If America doesn't want this oil, Asia will take every last barrel. Internal Energy Department modeling reportedly showed that a full implementation of energy tariffs could spike gas prices by up to $1 per gallon within days. Trump tried to use energy as a weapon. Carney turned it into a lever. And then there's the most consequential piece of all: rare earth minerals. This is where the story gets genuinely dangerous. To build a fighter jet, you need rare earth elements. To manufacture electric vehicles, you need lithium and cobalt. To run the servers powering artificial intelligence, you need critical minerals. China controls the majority of the global supply. Canada is the only secure, reliable alternative in the Western Hemisphere. The Pentagon has depended on Canadian mining operations to keep defense contractors supplied for years. When Trump announced his tariff threat, Carney made his most calculated move. He signed those critical minerals away, locking in uninterrupted long-term supply agreements with European tech companies and Japanese automakers. The proposed alliance aims to link the EU with the 12-nation CPTPP, creating a trading bloc of nearly 1.5 billion people, with officials in Brussels reportedly eager to finalize the arrangement. International Business Times. The United States was effectively cut out of the most important resource race of the 21st century. What did the cameras miss? Look at Wall Street. The opening bell rang and screens turned violently red. Not just automakers, technology, defense, retail. The S&P 500 fell by 1.8% on the day tariffs were confirmed, while the Nasdaq 100 dropped 2.6%. And by mid-March, the S&P had wiped out nearly all of its post-election gains. Wikipedia markets aren't sentimental. They looked at the math and realized something terrifying. The United States had just declared war on its most reliable partner. Behind closed doors, the panic spread fast. Industry lobbyists flooded Capitol Hill. Fortune 500 CEOs frantically called the chief of staff, all of them screaming the same thing: "Pull back! You're destroying us!" This is precisely why Trump has completely lost control of the narrative. He's trapped by his own tactics. His entire political brand is built on one simple formula: escalate with threats, back the target into a corner, threaten total destruction, then wait for them to cave. It's the mindset of a 1980s real estate developer. But you cannot run geopolitics like a furniture liquidation. The world has learned how to respond. They don't panic anymore. They respond with alternatives. They respond with silence, or they respond with coordinated action. Look at the cause and effect playing out right now. He threatened tariffs. Businesses immediately froze investment. Supply chains frayed. Consumer prices jumped. American voters are the ones absorbing the pain. He thought he had Canada as a hostage. But when you threaten your closest ally, you don't look strong. You look completely unstable. You look desperate. Trump is reactive. He acts on impulse. He catches a bad poll number or watches a cable news segment and lashes out. He wanted to squeeze Canada to look tough for his base. Instead, he forced Canada to prove it doesn't need him. And now Trump is stuck. If he retreats, his strongman image shatters. If he escalates, he triggers a recession in his own country. He chose a fight he cannot win. He brought a knife to a chess match. You need to understand why Mark Carney is the worst possible opponent for this moment. Carney doesn't fight the way Trump fights. Trump needs a shouting match. He needs you to get down in the mud with him. He needs the insults to dominate the news cycle. Carney refuses to play that game. He spent his career at the highest levels of global finance. He ran the Bank of Canada. He ran the Bank of England. He understands the hidden architecture of the global economy better than almost any politician alive. He works through systems, alliances, and markets. When Trump threw his wild punch, Carney didn't swing back. He simply stepped aside and let the momentum carry Trump straight off a cliff. Carney converts pressure into power. He took Trump's escalation and weaponized it, presenting it to European and Asian leaders as undeniable proof that Washington is too erratic to rely on. His message to the world was essentially, look at Washington right now. Do you want your critical supply chains tied to a man who governs by 3 a.m. impulse? Or do you want a stable, rule-following partner to the north? Canada is now committed to doubling its non-U.S. exports over the next decade, Independent Institute. And it's working. Canadian exports to non-U.S. countries hit a record in December 2025, up 30% from the same month in 2024, with growing shipments to the UK, EU, and China partially filling the gap left by declining U.S. trade. Argus Media. The world chose stability. Carney is playing a long game, and it's not just about surviving a tariff threat. It's about sovereignty. For decades, the Canadian economy was chained to its southern neighbor. If America sneezed, Canada caught a cold. Carney is breaking that dependency. He's diversifying the portfolio and building a global coalition that insulates against Washington's chaos. As Carney himself put it, the impact of American tariffs will be felt most acutely by American consumers, not Canadian ones, because it's American companies who pay the import costs and pass them down the line. Global news. He has something Trump will never possess: absolute credibility with global markets. When Trump speaks about the economy, markets brace for chaos. When Carney speaks, they listen. They trust the math. Carney didn't raise his voice. He raised the cost of ignoring Canada. He proved that real power isn't about who screams the loudest. It's about who has the most options. Trump demanded obedience. Canada chose options. Now let's zoom out, because this isn't just a story about two politicians. It's about you. Even if you've never followed Canadian politics, even if you've never crossed the border, Canada touches your daily life in ways you may not realize. You are watching history shift in real time. For over a century, America benefited from a safe, friendly, deeply integrated neighbor to the north. That relationship was the quiet foundation of American superpower status. You never had to worry about your northern flank. You never had to worry about your aluminum, your timber, or your energy supply going into crisis. Donald Trump just set that foundation on fire. What this means for ordinary people is unavoidable. When supply chains disrupt, you pay. The cost of building a home rises because Canadian lumber is blocked. The cost of buying a car increases because the integrated production network is shattered. The cost of heating your house and filling your gas tank goes up because energy markets are rattled. Manufacturing jobs in Ohio, Michigan, and Pennsylvania are directly at risk. But the damage runs deeper than prices. It's a collapse of trust. If the United States can't maintain a stable relationship with Canada, its closest cultural, democratic, and economic ally, who in the world will believe Washington? If Trump is willing to tear apart this partnership, why would Japan trust him? Why would Germany? Why would South Korea? They won't. They're watching this unfold and drawing their own conclusions. As one expert in Canada-US relations put it, the continent increasingly looks like three countries going their own separate ways. Global news. Trump's version of America First is rapidly becoming America Alone. He didn't negotiate, he demanded, and the world simply pushed back. So where does this go from here? There are three ways this plays out, and none of them are good for the White House. Scenario A is the quiet retreat. Corporate donors and Wall Street executives eventually reach him. They show him the internal data. They explain that following through on these tariffs will crash the equity markets and trigger a recession heading into the midterms. Trump lets the deadline pass without action. He takes to social media claiming phantom concessions from Canada that don't exist. He declares victory, but the damage is already done. Canada's new contracts with Europe and Asia remain locked in. The United States permanently loses a significant portion of its strategic resource security. Scenario B is escalation. Most rational actors would de-escalate, but Trump doesn't de-escalate when he feels humiliated. If Carney's pivot wounds his ego enough, he may sign the executive orders anyway. If he does, global markets crater instantly. Canada doesn't blink. Ottawa launches precision retaliatory tariffs, not against everything, but against specific industries in specific swing states. They hit Midwestern agriculture. They hit Kentucky bourbon. They hit the constituencies that matter most. The economic pain inside America becomes immediate and severe. Scenario C is the permanent realignment. This may be the most consequential outcome of all. The emergency contracts Carney signed become the new standard. Canada's trade dependency on the United States quietly diminishes year over year. The defense sector stalls because critical minerals are locked into European and Asian agreements. And America gradually becomes an economic island, surrounded by allies who have quietly decided the risk of depending on Washington is simply no longer worth it. We are at an inflection point. The old rules governing the Canada-US relationship are gone. They burned in real time. Donald Trump wanted to show the world who was in charge. He wanted to govern by fear. But Mark Carney showed the world something far more unsettling for Washington. America is not indispensable. He proved that competence and strategy will always outlast impulse and rage. The United States tried to corner Canada, and Canada simply walked through a door Trump didn't know existed. Do you think Carney is protecting Canada's future, or overplaying his hand and gambling with his own economy? Drop your answer below, and subscribe if you want the full picture before the mainstream narrative catches up to what's actually happening.